You know what we haven't done in a long time? Gotten kind of nerdy about bicycle geometry numbers. It's been a while. Now, if you don't mind recalling, when Poseidon released the Redwood, myself, Russ at Path Less Pedaled, and Mike at Locked In, 3 of the ACN cast members, if you will, we all received our own Poseidon Redwoods. Why is that relevant? Well, maybe 2 reasons, but the most important one is Mike took his Redwood and converted it to a 90s mountain bike. Swapped it from its spec'd flared drop bars to a flat bar, and aptly dubbed it the modern 90s retro mountain bike, which I really like. I like the drawn comparison. If you didn't watch that series, head on over to Locked In, check it out start to finish. I think there's like 9 episodes. Definitely a great way to kill time. Now, in saying that, we've got a flat bar Redwood after all those videos came out. Poseidon came out with the flat bar Redwood, and we've got a real retro 90s rock hopper right here, and we've got a great opportunity to truly compare a retro mountain bike to a modern retro mountain bike, if you will. So, the long ass intro out of the way, let's start doing that. Obviously, when studying the appearance alone, these 2 rigid bikes kind of couldn't look any more different. One is skinny, small steel, the other is chunky aluminum all around. Like, without question, the Redwood is the modern bike here. If I showed this to someone who was not into bikes and then showed them the rock hopper afterwards and said, which one is newer, I would say that everyone with 100% accuracy would say, this is a newer bike than that. And actually, in saying that, the modernness, the big chunkiness of the aluminum build, all the modernness of the Redwood, it does like a really good job of hiding some of the nuanced differences between the 2, especially in like some of the more harder to see geometries. But we'll get into that shortly. Let's do the easy ones first. So first off, both of these bikes are considered size large. So first up, and maybe the most comical differences between the Redwood and the rock hopper is the top tube and seat tube lengths. So the Redwood in a size large has a 563 millimeter top tube, which is what you would sort of expect for a size large. Now, the size 20-inch, the size large rock hopper Sport 1993 that I have, it has a measured 584 millimeter top tube length. It's 21 millimeters longer. I'd love to say that I make up for the difference in the top tube length with a shorter stem, but I actually have a 70 millimeter stem on both of these bikes. Okay, seat tube length. Seat tube length is notably the biggest difference. The Poseidon has an expected 550 millimeter long seat tube length, but compare that to the comically low seat tube length of the rock hopper at 508 millimeters. What's that? 42 millimeters lower on the rock hopper. And then obviously, and I don't have the numbers, a big difference in fork length, axle to crown, head tube length, I think, ultimately resulting in a flatter, more horizontal top tube on the rock hopper versus the more sloping, slightly sloping top tube of the Redwood. The Redwood is just like undeniably a taller, shorter bike. Like there's no arguing it. There's no discussion here. Chainstay length. Redwood 440 millimeters. Rockhopper, 428 millimeters. A little more sprightly in the Rockhopper, I guess. Though, unsurprisingly, based on that difference in top tube length, we've got a different wheelbase to contend with here. 1052 on the Redwood, 1073 on the Rockhopper. That checks out. 21 millimeters longer in the head tube, that makes sense. Obviously, there's numbers to take into account here with fork rake and head tube angle, which we're gonna get into right now. So without prior knowledge and taking your guess on appearance alone, which of these two would you say has a slacker head tube angle and like more resulting trail? The answer is the Redwood. The Redwood actually has a head tube angle of 71 degrees with a resulting trail figure of 74 millimeters versus the 72 degree head tube angle of the Rockhopper and a resulting trail of, it's reported, 67 millimeters. I personally, and you may not share this sentiment, I find that the really chunky, like the larger hydroformed aluminum shapes of everything on the Redwood actually makes the bike look steeper and tighter than the small skinny tubes of the Rockhopper. I've always looked at this bike thinking it was a slacker head angle and a more raked fork than it actually is. It's just everything's so thin and you can really see all those angles where everything's sort of hidden in a bunch of material on the Redwood. So the resulting 74 millimeter trail figure of the Redwood means it's a little more like cross-country mountain bikey steering characteristics, while the 67 millimeter trail figure of the Rockhopper means it's like slightly twitchier and that is in theory anyway. I'm not a good enough rider to actually like tell the difference, but I can say that my riding style, like the way that I would want to ride the Rockhopper, is actually a lot different than the way I want to ride the Redwood. So I've vlogged on both of these bikes riding on single track in the woods, and I will say that I'm actually more comfortable riding down steep rock rolls and any of those features where like the bike kind of needs to get out in front of you and save you on the Rockhopper more so than the Redwood. And I think that completely comes down to added wheelbase, lower overall height in general, so the bike feels like it's actually floating underneath you. It's not there trying to hit you all the time, where the added height of the Redwood definitely. Now, where the Redwood really takes the reins is more so in its playfulness. I can 360 this bike, I can 180 it, I can ride it a little more like a BMX, the GTMX. I find it's actually an easier bike to throw around. Anyway, there you go. Our aptly dubbed modern retro 90s mountain bike versus a whole genuine, real deal 90s mountain bike with a bunch of modern parts put on it.